On the rooftop, click, click, click. Hex, Pulse, or PulseX, which do you pick? Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host, Crypto Ewok. We have one heck of a stream for you tonight. We are talking about the DeFi Utopia being built on PulseChain. And the good news is, if you're still out there, if you are new to the channel, new to the ecosystem, which data kind of shows there are people out there that are awakening to what's going on here in PulseChain, you are still early. Now, you didn't get the lows. That's okay. It's forgivable. And there's not much time left. But if you're getting here right now, you can still get in while the getting's good, at least. Who knows? I mean, maybe within the month, maybe 2 months, maybe just 2 weeks. I don't know. But things certainly look primed for takeoff here. So welcome in, everybody. We're going to talk about mass adoption, what's going on with pDAI, the big vote that is coming here on Friday, actually, whether it will be collateralized, a whole lot more, like a lot of stuff going on in this ecosystem right now. We got Bitcoin flying up near almost 100K. It hit 99 earlier today. It's about there right now. So lots of huge things happening in the world of crypto. Smash, actually peg the like, please, on your way in. We got Addy Wio, Valiant Low Key, Red Squirrel, Oi Oi, The Rat, Degen Moon Boy, happy belated birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And anybody else who's had a recent birthday. So welcome in, everybody. We have a great show for you tonight. Going to be a good one. Ewok, so much going on. How are you feeling about things tonight?
I'm feeling great. It's just, you know, the sentiment, the buzz, you just feel it. I mean, you just feel it in the air. Everybody's got that buzz. Everybody's got that positivity. You're seeing people come back that haven't been around for a while. You've got different influencers talking about PulseChain now. And, you know, it's funny. I don't know if you saw it this morning. Rand said something. It was like, well, I'm not buying it and I don't have any of it, but we got to talk about this and the possibility of what happens if, you know, this court case goes the way we intend. And so people are just, it's starting. There was an interesting Binance tweet out there about a heartbeat, a pulse, and no idea. It's kind of cryptic. I wouldn't get too excited over that one, but just you're seeing it. And people, again, there's so much buzz going on that it's, you know, it's becoming quite noticeable. So,
yeah, I agree. The Rand thing was funny because he started it by saying, like, I'm not going to talk about Pulse and PulseX or Pulse and Hex because I never talk about Pulse and Hex. I'm just like, okay, why? And then, he did give the alpha on doing the anti-SEC trade. And then, of course, later today, we did get, I already forget his name, Paul Atkins named as the new SEC chair. We'll probably get to a little bit of that later tonight. So, yeah, I guess he brings up a good point there as well. But you're right. Big time influencers starting to talk about PulseChain a little bit. And that's nothing. I mean, we're in December of 2024. There is so much more that is coming and going to happen here. So, yeah.
For sure.
Well, let's start off. Oh, real quick, and I will throw the poll question out there. So and I'm interested in this because I feel like the skepticism about pDAI and what may be going on there, or what is going on, depending upon your point of view, it's becoming obviously less controversial and more people coming on one way. So is there actually a plan for pDAI to peg, or are people delusional? Is the poll question. So number one, proof is on chain. It will peg. So far, 38% of our viewers think that. Second, useless meme coin speculation is only 6% of the vote so far. So I am happy to see that the tide seems to be shifting from that, although I know that sentiment is still out there. And then a humble 53% majority say, I'm not sure. Well, hey, good for you. Maybe I shouldn't have put maybe that's not that interesting. Maybe I shouldn't have put that option in there, but that's there as well if you're a fence sitter. Don't be a fence sitter. Pick one or the other. Anyway, so let's get into the numbers. So yeah, Bitcoin screaming up today. Not as we sit here right now, I'm on Coin Paprika, but just over 99K. We got tweets out of live streams of people like, hey, join us to watch Bitcoin hit 100K, and it still hasn't done it, but you know, we virtually have. The bigger story for us and most people that are really trying to make it this cycle is that Ethereum is starting to crawl up. We are at 38.54 for ETH right now. I think it hit right around 3,900 earlier today. There's a certain wallet that bought 170,000 ETH months ago that has been made whole again, at least temporarily, that people are talking about that happens to like PulseChain coins. So we've got that. That puts that wallet at what, 650 million or something like that. Dollars. So ETH is moving up. Last I saw was at 0.04. Its ratio against BTC still not good, but back to around the markers that we were before that horrible day 4 months ago in early August when markets just kind of tanked. So we'll go with you, Ewok, here. What do you think about where Bitcoin is at right now? I mean, we are just teetering at 100K as we are in the final month, unbelievable, of 2024 here. What do you foresee over the course of this month for Bitcoin and ETH? We'll go into each of them.
Well, so Bitcoin, it's that 100,000 level that is just, I don't know if it's psychological or what it is. People have so many sell orders set for that price. And I think even maybe just a little bit lower because they're trying to front run a few people. So I see us chopping in this zone for a little while, maybe even, another week. It's quite possible. Just because of the amount of the sells, people are manipulating prices. We've known for a long time that, the people that are buying big bags of this stuff have definitely been manipulating prices to try and keep it down where they can and to scoop some more up. But yeah, it's just that it's one of those psychological levels. And when you run into them, you end up with a lot of resistance until you break through it. And it continues to be, it'll continue to be resistance until it gets broken through. And then hopefully it can become support. Now, how much of support is yet to see. But yeah, I think the more exciting thing, and you mentioned it, is the Ethereum price. And, we've got a really nice green candle sitting at 38.36 right now. You mentioned that it is the treasury, so to speak, wallet is at 657.54 million. Basically, it's up 11 million, almost $12 million on its average DCA price. So I think that DCA entry was like 37.70 or something like that. So that's looking good. This ratio that we talk about quite often, it did just fall back below the 0.04. But don't forget, I think back here when we were mentioning this is probably our bottom resistance. It was back at 0.032. So we have come quite a long way to climb out of that in just, a couple short weeks. So very bullish. I think people are also maybe holding the price of this back a little too. I mean, it's trying, but we see some massive sell days here. And I think now people are starting to buy that ETH ETF. People may have their positions ready for the Bitcoin one, and now they're scooping up Ethereum because they know it's one of those delayed or just a little bit lagging types of coins. So yeah, everything's looking strong. I can see this. I can see both of these actually chopping around a little bit. I do think Ethereum should break through here the 3,900 level. And then we'll see maybe some resistance at that 4,000 level, like we're seeing right now for Bitcoin at 100,000. So hopefully it can, staircase up, have some pullbacks in between to keep it healthy. As we always say, we got to see some of these red candles mixed in here just to keep things healthy, to keep it moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think like with everything that's going on right now, and it being the last month of the year, I think we're gonna see Bitcoin. I mean, not that this is saying anything, but reach new all-time highs. I mean, literally, it could happen on stream right now. I think we're gonna have a really good rest of the year. I think there's a chance we could see it get to like 105, maybe even above that, because it's one of those things that like whenever you break new all-time highs, there's just that all air area where it's like, where will it go? And I totally agree with you too. I think we're seeing the just on a dime turnaround from Ethereum, where all these Bitcoin maxis and stuff have been victory lapping its dominance, overall the rest of the market, but especially over ETH here over the last couple of months. And I think that's turning on a dime, and we're just going to see, this is what happens in crypto. Like, this is why, so many people can't make it, because you spend literally, this is not hyperbole, like potentially 3.5 years or something in a certain zone or in a certain area. Look at we didn't even want to get into this, but I mean, we can use it as an example. Look at Ripple right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, regardless of what you think of them, like, think of those people. Like, think of the people, like, as dedicated as we are, DCing into this ecosystem and stuff like that, and all the held and stuff that we've been through over the last 3 years. Those guys, same thing, or dealing with the SEC, except, of course, they're, the CEO of Ripple is actually dumping on them and stuff along the way, too. But all of a sudden, it shoots up to like $3 out of nowhere. And that's what people need to understand in crypto. Like, you can victory lap all this stuff and think that you know everything and pat yourself on the back. But when something changes, it's not always this gradual stair step up that looks evident. Yeah, look at that right there. I mean, those are stair steps, but it's not very gradual. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff comes out of nowhere. I mean, maybe we could just touch on the Ripple thing real quick. We didn't even have it as a topic, but it is. I think it's relevant because it is a sign for the rest of the altcoins. Number one, Ethereum and where it's going is, but Ripple doing this shit out of nowhere is insane.
Yep.
And maybe you could even speak to that Ewok in past cycles, like where Ripple has maybe not led the charge, but been something because it is one of those top market cap coins where it's like indicative of where things could be going.
Well, I don't know that it's really led the charge before. Let's take a look back here in 20. I guess it was probably March of 2020, January. Yeah, I mean, I guess it did kind of start, but it really coincided. I mean, it went from 17 cents up to $2 basically. And it ended right about the same time. So that was April 15th. So I think the top was even in before Bitcoin's top, if that was the top. And then back in 2018, it topped out just at the very end, January, right at the beginning of January. But it didn't lead. It's never been like a lead indicator like this. Not to say that, Bitcoin hasn't already made its run. So I guess it's not really fair to say that. But it's definitely, gone from what, 48 cents, all the way up to $2.90 ish.
Yeah.
So far. And it's, having another one of those nice little pullbacks. Now, I do think they get the benefit of finally being probably out from under the SEC, the whole lawsuit, everything like that. They've won pretty much. They've been, SEC was denied their appeal. So, it is time for them to shine. And they do have a diehard community. It just goes to show what a community can do for a token. And these guys have been diehard all along. You see the XRP army, they've been there. They've been in, I don't follow any of them, so I don't see it like in my echo chamber. But I do see stuff. People calling for crazy numbers, like
$592.
Yeah, I've seen $1,000, $2,000 predictions. I'm like,
where's that coming from?
Now
all that money?
Now you're pushing it because, like you said, Garlinghouse and his team, they dump constantly. They've got a building to pay for. They've got employees. They've got all kind of expenses. So, we do have that advantage going for us, is that our founder doesn't need to sell to pay for things like that. So, that's why I can totally see something like this happening in the world of Hex. People say, you're crazy, it'll never do that. But, you just look and you see what this has done. And XRP has been around for a couple cycles. So don't count anything out, man. It's just, it's anything is possible in this world.
Yeah, it's awesome to see XRP do this. I mean, it's basically already either like matched or surpassed its high from last cycle, which it's not even 2025. So that's pretty incredible for it. So maybe it'll be down low only from here, though. We'll see. I don't know. But good to see from XRP anyway. So the crypto market at large looking pretty frothy. Let's look at PulseChain here now. We have been pumping pretty well here over the last couple of weeks with the rest of the market. Things have been moving up substantially. We have Pulse now at what I guess that'd be about 82% of sack rate. So 4 zeros and an 8.2. So it's, I mean, I think it's kind of at a local top, or has been at a local top really today. PulseX is at 58.5% of sack rate. 4 zeros, 585. Incentive token right at $4. Combined hex, I'm sure I'm triggering people saying that, is at what, 3.3 cents probably. We have hex on PulseChain at 2.8, and eHex is at basically a half of a penny right now, and it has been moving up big time. It has closed that gap, that 10-to-1 gap, between hex and eHex down. It's halved it basically recently. So very interesting there. So yeah, what do you make? I guess we can pull up Pulse first here and just kind of take a look. Maybe we can even look at the hexes too, but I don't want to get way too bogged down because we want to get into some of these pDAI updates and some things that are coming. So
I am going to pull up, this is the eHex chart just because I had it here. And you look at this nice little run, like you said, it went from basically 0.001 to 0.005 rather quickly, from less than a month. So there's that, the pullback. We've also got I'll just bring it up quickly. I think BankX still has 468 million left, although they pulled 200 million from their liquidity wall.
Right.
So they've got 268 million liquid and $200 million on the sell, or 200 million hex on the sell wall. So that is a positive thing. Maybe kind of was wishing that they would just get rid of all of it so that we could move on without that, hanging over our heads. But it's one of the reasons why I think it was able to fly up here like this. They've got their sell wall set, obviously a little bit higher. So, let's get through each level as we can, and I think it'll do just fine. So, all right, let's switch over here to PulseChain and take a look at this one. And yeah, you're seeing, a very, very similar structure out of this one as well. Now this is against the DAI price. Obviously, I didn't put it on the Ethereum pair, which we may want to take a look at that pair to see how it's
great too.
To see how it's doing against ETH. So let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, for a while it was kind of just flatlining, like in a I've bottomed type of way, but
now
so
look at the chart against Ethereum. So okay, not as impressive.
We'll zoom out a little bit though. I mean, so there's that whole bottoming sequence over the course of months, but I mean it's still gradually moved up, and Ethereum's just been moving up too. So
they're both moving up somewhat together, but there's still a small trajectory here. They've got their rounded bottom, and it is holding, very closely. So that's a good thing. I think it's looking healthy. You made this sideways chop for quite a while, and it took kind of the lead, and then it pulled back, but it's now starting again. So against ETH, it's looking good, but against the US dollar, it's looking very strong. This structure here. I mean, again, we'll go back to the same thing, but kind of beginning of November-ish, where we hit, this last local bottom. Obviously it wasn't the bottom back in September, but just on November 4th, we've made, let's take a look, up to today's price, which is 83.23 something, 118%. So done a easy 2x just in a month. A month and 2 days.
And that is substantial. I mean, for anybody who has been DCAing hardcore over the last year and a half or whatever, 3 years now, I mean, you're going to notice that in your portfolio, of course, as long as you have been DCAing down at the lows. That's the important thing. But yeah, and then of course, PulseX, the ratio is still looking great against Pulse. We're going to get in, and we're going to get into that ratio stuff here in a minute, like PulseX potentially getting to parity with Pulse, and earmuffs, everybody, eHex getting into parity with Hex as well. We'll talk about that too. But yeah, all these are looking great right now. I know Ink just hit a key level on the weekly as well. So incentive token, it looked like it really wanted to burst out the other day. I mean, it went to like 4.25 or something like that before the ecosystem kind of pulled back, but it's probably set to run up here a bit as well. So yeah.
Looking at the PulseX ratio at 0.71, and it keeps climbing. So I do totally see this happening way before the hexes reach parity,
right?
Only because, again, you've got a bunch of different players now. It's not how should I say it? You still have the sides, right? You still have this is better, this side's better than this side. You've got the the stigma of the tweet. The market has decided tweet, and markets take a while to play out. So again, now we're getting into the territory though of gas fees, and I think I brought it up to you earlier because I had a stake, and in the last couple of days, one of them was from day 3. And what was it? What I show you? $650 this afternoon to try to end it.
Yeah. What was the way then? Like 50-ish, or
it was around 50. So I think it's around 20, 25 or 20 right now anyway. So it would obviously be still $300, half of that, to end a stake is ridiculous. So
yeah,
you're definitely going to see, for the people that want to stake, that want to earn more, PulseChain is obviously the one to hold. But as far as a liquid token, I think we'll find a happy ratio and probably stay with it. As things go up, I don't see the hexes getting to parity. It would take a miracle effort and a lot of liquidity bonding once it actually got close to even consider it. And I don't know that any one holder has enough liquidity of both to bond them other than the OA.
Well, that's a pretty good transition to just get into that topic, I think, which is a pretty juicy one. So let's do that. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor, hit the like. We appreciate all of you being here. Peg the like button. Give it the pegging. Is there actually a plan for pDAI to peg, or are people delusional? 50% say the proof is on chain, it's going to peg. Only 9% say it's a useless meme coin speculation token. And 41% humbly say, I'm not sure. So that's where we're at right now. But in terms of these things, other things reaching parity, okay. So the idea that, and we're going to get into the other pDAI stuff and the proposal that the vote is ending here on Friday the 6th. But the idea that pDAI is linked by liquidity to both the wrapped Bitcoin, which I don't know where it's at price right now. I think like $1,700 or something. The better Bitcoin on PulseChain, and Hex. The fact that pDAI is liquidity, has linked in liquidity to both of those, does this alone translate that Hex will get to $1 just because of the simple fact that, I shouldn't say fact, but the theory that pDAI obviously would get to $1? How much do you, now obviously I think you've had targets of Hex getting to $1 anyway, regardless of this, but how much do you put into that and pDAI being linked in liquidity to Hex getting to $1?
Well, I've had Hex going to $1 way before I even believed anything about the pDAI. So
yeah.
Now, because there is, some liquidity bonding, again, I don't think there's, I don't know the numbers of how much liquidity is tied together with it. As far as the pools say how much is there. But I don't think one is going to just pull the other one up, only because Hex has so many other ties. I'm sure there are PulseX, Ink, Pulse, those three. can pull it up along. I know pDAI is tied to a lot of things. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember, but when Axis was on, he had
Oh,
the
yeah.
spider webs of all the things that everything is tied to. It's all, the old saying, the rising tide lifts all ships, and it's true. But I think Hex has more of a springboard than pDAI at the moment. So I don't know that they'll stay in sync the whole way up. So,
Right.
but yeah, the thing with pDAI is, though, we think it could, once it gets to $1, things could be activated where it stops. Where I don't think Hex stops there.
Well, of course. Yeah.
And obviously, if it does get to $1, you've got a lot of things into play then where people would probably transfer out of those dollars and into Hex, PulseX, incentive, those types of things. So it just continues to go. So, it's all a matter of how far do you want to go, and how, at what point, because every time it doubles, it's less of an X that you can get, right?
Mm-hmm.
If so, I'm just saying, if you were to buy Hex right now and you were to buy pDAI right now, obviously the better return would probably be Hex, because it's going to continue. If you wait till pDAI gets to $1, you're going to miss out on a lot of X's that end up making a lot more compounded in the future, is what I'm getting at. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just a thought.
Well, I agree with something that you said earlier because, talking about like we were going to get here, but like the hexes reaching parity versus PulseX and Pulse reaching parity, the pDAI liquidity, I think, is already leading to PulseX matching Pulse. And I totally agree with you. I think PulseX is going. I didn't feel this before, but just the more and more, I mean, the chart is not an accident. You look at the PulseX Pulse ratio. For a
Yeah.
long time, it was clear, and we've talked to this to Axis many times, like the reason that PulseX lagged so much is quite simply just because 3 times the people sacrificed for it, 3 times the amount of money was sacrificed for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why we saw that. So for it to just have this ridiculous charge that it has had against Pulse, going the whole way from like 1-to-4 ratio to like 1 to 1.4 right now or something like that. I don't think it's an accident. So I 100% think PulseX is going to reach parity with Pulse, whether it's like, they're actually tied together like that, or at least stay together. We'll see, but I think that is definitely coming. And Axis, when he was on just a couple of weeks ago, basically said, we asked about PulseX, and he was like, basically, I think that PulseX is going to do double anything that Pulse does right now, because at that time it was, 1.5 ratio or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I've been DCAing PulseX maybe harder than anything because of that. And I also want to ask you this. I mean, like we keep kind of going around it, but like the Hex parity thing, like you're saying that you don't think that that's going to happen, but I kind of think it's going to. And I don't mean like, a marriage where, one can't fall off of where it's at with the other, but I think it is going to make a charge later in the bull market, and we will see eHex, maybe even at the very end, get very close, if not right to where Hex is. And that's why I think, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, because either way, I mean, whether you think that it's going to be pegged or reach parity with Hex or not, there still could be a very good opportunity there to DCA because of how low it is against Hex. So I'm curious for you, do you like, clearly, I think PulseX is like, that's what I want to buy the most in the ecosystem, honestly, right now. But how good of a buy do you think eHex is? Because, and again, earmuffs for anybody out there that doesn't like to hear this kind of talk. I know it's slanderous, but I mean, how good of a buy do you think it is? Because it is discounted in relation to Hex, and I would never go like all in on one. I've never done that. None of us ever advocated any of that. We've never said that on this channel whatsoever. We talked about like just DCing into both or whatever you want to do. But I do think it is worthwhile and has been worth my while here to DCA into eHex. So what do you feel about that?
Well, sure. So I think if you're going to go, I don't know, if you're trying to put even amounts in, I would probably cut it into 2/3, maybe. Like, I agree with you. PulseX is where I've also been trying to DCA the most. And I'll be honest, the reason why is because I have the PulseX Pulse liquidity pair, right?
Right.
And I've come up short because PulseX is outperforming Pulse. So I'm very hesitant to sell the incentive because I think it's going to do great things too. And I don't want to lose out on that. So I've been trying to DCA up in the PulseX because that's where my impermanent loss is. So I'm trying to rebuild some of that back without selling the incentive to do it because I want to hang on to it too. But that being said, if I'm putting, say, just for example, you got $400 and, you want to put 100, and then maybe I would split that EHEX pDAI between the two or something along those lines. That would be my DCA for those essentially 5 tokens or whatever it was. I'm not saying necessarily pDAI, but there's a lot of people talking teddy bear. There's a lot of people talking Pika. There's a lot of people talking just all kind of stuff that they're putting a little moon bag into. I don't think it hurts to have a moon bag of EHEX either. And I don't necessarily wouldn't call it a lottery ticket because I still think it is closer to some of the bigger on ramps. I think people are going to still see that chart from the Ethereum side. Obviously if Uniswap were to happen to decide to relist it, if the hearing goes well and they say, well, we'll put it back on there, and that was maybe whatever, I don't know if they'll do that or not. But there are catalysts that could, easily rocket that up. As far as reaching parity, I think it could get close. I think the purpose of Hex is to stake it, in my opinion. And, not everybody feels the way I do. They want to hold it. They want to be liquid so that they have that opportunity to sell. I'm looking at it more of a long-term play, right? It's more for me, a longer-term savings account. And I obviously do want to take some profits this cycle, so that I can have some to buy back in when it does go down again, at that point, whatever those bottom levels are, and have more ammunition than I had the last time to DCA. Because I didn't have a lot of dry powder, coming into this cycle because I was staked out so far with everything. So anyway, that's just my opinion. I would cut a quarter of it in half and go, 2 of those instead of just 1 token. So hopefully that answered your question.
I'm going to say it is a controversial opinion. I agree with DeFi Gardner 100%. Not that, like you just said, Ewok, like you still want to have some exposure to ink to see what it's going to do and everything. But, this isn't a one size fits all. It's like whatever your bags are and whatever you want to do. But just like you were saying about DCing at a PulseX because you're in that yield farm, which I'm also in, I would totally understand people putting some of the free ink that they have earned back into PulseX because, at the end of the day, regardless of what's going to happen at Ink, there is still going to be a, stigma out there that it's like the dump token or the cake token or whatever. And you look at the chart and it is pretty much down. It has come up. And again, I'm not saying things aren't going to happen that are good for Ink. I think they definitely are. Am I frozen right now or is it just me?
Your camera's frozen. Yeah, but I hear you.
But I understand having like a moon bag of ink or whatever, but if you really want to get back into the ecosystem, like I personally would rather have PulseX right now. So I understand where he's coming from with that.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to try to fix this in a second.
Just at the bottom, hit stop.
Oh, it just, yeah. Well, I was just about to go into another topic unless you want to talk about something. I'm going to unplug this and plug it back in. So give me a sec.
No, go ahead.
So that is where we're at with that. I was going to check up on, let me see if we're good here. There we go.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So let's move on to this, part of this. So Friday, 12/6 is the date for the governance vote on pDAI, the acceptance for the collateralization vote to bond all the coins. Last we checked, I don't know that we need to look at it again. If you want to pull it up, Ewok, you're more than welcome. But last we checked, it was unanimously in favor of doing this. I think it was, thousands of vote yes and 0 no.
Do you remember the name of that site again?
I don't. And I forget, was it from Decentralize Me where we got it? I forget where I got it on Twitter. Shit. I know you had it.
Yeah, and I didn't save it because it was so unanimous that I don't. PulseChain vote maybe, or Pulse.
Here it is. Here, pulsemaker.win. Is that it?
That sounds right.
Yep, yeah. That's it. Do you got it?
I got it.
Okay. Yeah, so you can essentially go to this thing and connect your wallet, do your due diligence, of course, with anything like that, but connect your wallet to vote on the proposition. I'm trying to see where the actual results are on here. Okay, you got it, it looks like. Is that some no's we have there now? Or abstain. Okay.
0.23. Maker voted, so it's still 0 basically, but there was a very, very small that said no. 666.67 P makers voted to abstain, which
it's interesting.
Why? But and then you've got 85% of the vote saying yes.
Yep. So obviously it looks like this is going to be a pass on the group voting part of this. Now, the way that these things work, though, is the 6th is the deadline for that. So obviously if we get a yes on this, then it goes on to like the executive vote thing, where whoever is in control of that would then decide whether to go through with it or not. And I don't believe there is a deadline on that entity to vote. I think that could be something that's done immediately if they so choose, or they could piss around and wait and shake people out potentially, or they could vote no, which would be a huge, it would freak people out. I don't think that it would change the narrative necessarily or change what's going on, but it would probably freak people out.
Well, there's always somebody that's trying to shake out weak hands. So it is interesting here that, you've got the active poll, and then there is the executive too. So, this is new to me. When you told me that earlier, I had no idea that was part of I didn't really look into how the proposals work and how the votes, just something I was never really that familiar with. But I guess once this completes, then it goes into the executive and just kind of sits here, right? Is that what you're thinking?
I believe so. And like I said to you earlier, that's why so many people shit on things that are just governance tokens, and that's all their use case is, because it's like, okay, so you vote on a proposition and then they could just say no, like even if you vote in favor of it. But this is going to be...
Do you get your tokens back after you voted, or are they gone?
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Just curious. It may stop people from voting if you're not getting your tokens back. Interesting.
Yeah. Because I know, that's all that Uniswap is good for example, with their token. But it does look like this will pass in terms of that, but then it's a matter of what that entity does after. And then in addition to this, like as far as any kind of potential clues leading up, and there's like all kinds of drama about this on Twitter, and whether it is, whether it isn't, and people are, angry at each other. But just yesterday, we saw a Mega Whale wallet vote on the proposal in favor of it. And then you can put a comment whenever you vote, and they said, in it for the glory and love. And that wallet has a bunch of like tokens in the amount of 5555. It has sent extremely large bags of Hex, and I believe other tokens as well. People speculating, could this be RH? Is it somebody that works with him or something in some way, or related to him in some way? What do you make of the potential that it could be him? That quote does definitely sound like something he literally has said. which doesn't mean it was him
Right.
necessarily. But what do you think of the potential that it could be him? And just, I don't know if you've seen any of the reactions from people, but there's some interesting stuff out there. So what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it could be, but there, like you said, there's a bunch of other tokens that I'm not sure he would hold at the same time. So it's really hard to say. People know what Richard says. They've been listening to him forever. Very, very difficult to say. But there's always that possibility that it is. And again, I can't make anything out of it until we know for sure. Until we hear him say something, it's going to remain speculations. I mean, you do have a lot of people that are digging in deep, down so many rabbit holes. But again, until we see clarity, until that main wallet or whatever passes it or puts it through, it's all speculation. So I want people to not misunderstand what we're saying and just be very careful. We're not saying ape into this by any means, but
I'm not even saying buy it at all. Actually,
yeah.
I mean, what like thinking that this narrative is real and that it's going to happen versus buying or telling somebody to buy pDAI, I think are two completely different conversations.
Well, I just wanted to make it clear.
Well, I wanted to make it clearer.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Anyway.
So yeah, again, it's complete speculation. I do agree. Normally, I don't agree with wall-to-wall TV here, but
the watches Lex Friedman part made me laugh. I don't know. That's funny. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, he put the love thing at the end, and I that kind of threw me off a little bit. If it just said I'm in it for the glory, I probably would have thought it was him more, but someone took the line out of the movie and he said, I'm in it for the glory. I just want to be loved. So I think somebody took, it leads me to believe it's not really him. So
a mid-level whale that watches Lex Friedman.
Yeah.
Wall-to-wall TV. Maybe we will get along because
that was a good one.
And I don't have a problem with Lex Friedman, but I think I know where you're coming from. It's kind of funny. But yeah, whether it is or isn't, I don't think matters at all, really. But just the thing is, grouping whether that's him or not, and people arguing about that in with arguing about the whole rest of the narrative, like people that are like, you guys are just making a lot of jumps here, when there's a lot of data and a lot of things on chain that I think highly point in favor that this is what's going on at this point, and here's the beautiful thing. If you're doubting it or don't believe in it or think that pDAI is a useless meme speculation or something, and then you're wrong, guess what? You still benefit hugely. So it's kind of a win-win, really. So you get to be wrong and right kind of at the end of the day. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
Sure. Along with that, I guess we kind of talked about I guess here's my question. So if it goes on to the executive vote and we do get, well, let's say within 3 days or by the start of next week, we do get an approval on it. How quickly do you think things move? Because that would be all out, confirmation that this is what's going on. I think at this point, what else would be needed? What else would be needed that this is exactly what's happening with proof at that point,
Well, if it goes through both levels, if it goes through this and then the executive puts it right through, you're absolutely right. I think that speaks volumes and it is what it is. And at that point, I think you start to see a massive takeoff. I think that's enough catalyst just to send it. But yeah, I mean, but if it doesn't, again, Richard is a chess player and he's always thinking ahead. Would he wait? Would he just let it sit there for a while until he's ready? There's other speculations that he may have a completely different stable coin, that he may use this stuff to kind of tie to that. I don't know. I do know the whole USDC thing was the PUSDC was quite confusing.
Push DC.
Yes, that
Yeah.
it was confusing to see how it was like. It's still used as collateral, but not as a true backing. If you follow 9iron Capital, they go through. I'm just going to pull it up because
which everybody should, yeah. At 9iron Capital, and I like Decentralize Me as well. They're both really good.
Yeah, they're both really good. So here is the tweet, and it's like a 10-parter, but it goes down the rabbit hole where he claims that his post about PUSDC was wrong. And it goes on. I'm not going to read through it, obviously, but there's a lot to digest here. There's a lot of very, very technical things on how the mechanism actually can work, what it uses to collateralize, what it uses in the initial state, the 4 different tokens of how things are used as far as the token, the collateral, the over collateralization, and then the emergency. So it's a good read. It's a lot to take in, but very, very informative. And the more I read, the more I get confused. I feel like sometimes some things make more sense and then others make less. Like my initial thought was, wouldn't you want the PUSDC to be pretty much pegged to pDAI so that when it did peg, there was actually that amount of collateral there? But apparently that's not the case. So anyway, there's a lot of things here that the debt ceiling for PUSDC was set to 0 in the collateral vaults. And it goes on to tell you why that's important. So again, read through that tweet, follow 9iron Capital if you're interested in this stuff. Again, I'm not going to read it word for word, but there's a lot of good information in there.
Well, and also just the fact that you were kind of illustrating there is that pDAI isn't actually going to be the stable coin. It's going to be some other stable coin that in part backs. So it getting to $1, I think, is one of the steps, but then there's actually going to be some unique to PulseChain different stable coin that is backed by all of these things. So yeah, really interesting. The last kind of, this isn't really that weighty of a topic and maybe people don't care, but in terms of the pDAI stuff and just the narrative shift, and we just had a comment, funnily enough, in the chat that was part of it's a meme coin, it's dumb, why are you guys paying attention to this, blah, blah, blah. There is this huge narrative shift where, it seems like there's always been this divide between, and hey, all the credit in the world to B Roots. I know people like hate on him every now and then and stuff, or think he's a scammer, he does this or he does that. But credit to him and Ian. I mean, I don't remember anybody talking about pDAI and stuff like that before them, or at least not yelling it from the rooftops as early as they were. So the shit's coming together, so it's looking pretty real. But we are getting to the point where we're seeing like people that maybe weren't speaking out about pDAI, but like weren't really, the last ones to capitulate, kind of, that you wouldn't think maybe ever would, are starting to now,
Yeah.
And one of which is Matty Allen, who tweeted about it the other day and talked about like, it's a bigger man to like admit being wrong. And he said, I was wrong about pDAI. I saw he's been like hashtagging pDAI whenever he types out the other, whatever, 4 or 5 core coins and stuff like that. To the point that Matty is now, I think it's tomorrow, actually, having some kind of pDAI conference now.
Yeah.
Which I found pretty interesting. And then, of course, Matty is very good. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's Matty or something else in the universe or what it is, but he seems to get controversy around him very easily. So, I mean, I think kudos to him, at least for, coming around on it, speaking out about it, seeing, having the realization and stuff like that. And hey, if you want to have a conference, more power to you. But of course, people are coming out like, no. You don't get to, not acknowledge us for a year and a half, or shit on us, or call us this or call us that. Now you're having a conference. I got my eyes on you and stuff like that. So, I don't really have much of an opinion one way or the other. I mean, I guess overall, I'm happy that more people are being open to this. And I think the more tall telling thing is that the people that are completely closed off to this and speaking out against it and raging against it are the ones that I feel a little curious about, because that's just not really a very, open-minded crypto type attitude. But what do you make about Maddie coming around on this and the conference and stuff?
Well, Maddie gets a unfair, probably criticism sometimes, because I know the work that he takes, that he puts into, whether it be an online conference or whether it's an in-person conference. And I know he's not making anything from it. He's making enough to cover the cost of the room, a merch bag or something like that, and to pay for some equipment to use. So, I think he gets a unfair bad reputation about that. A lot of times people think he's trying to fleece the community. But again, there's always going to be new people coming around supporting things, but I feel like he almost jumped on the bandwagon a little too quick. In my opinion, he went from not believing it to believing it, and now throwing a conference within a week. So
yeah, I found that's just the angle I found a little interesting. Yeah,
it just makes it look odd, whatever. Unless there was another conference, I mean, obviously, I think he's timing it with the end of the vote, and that's the only reason it's happening that way. There was just the recent Hex birthday thing that they did for, it was a 24-hour stream, I believe.
Yeah, just the other day for
so happy 5th birthday to Hex and all the Hexicans, so the ones that have been here that long. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any. I've never had anything bad to say about Maddie. I know he puts a lot of time and effort into the streams and everything like that, and all the conferences that he's put together. And people think he's taking money unfairly. And again, I don't think he's making anything. Just enough to get by, to pay the bills, to maybe put some aside to do the next one. So he gets a unfair rap sometimes. That's all I've got to say, really.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's not something I'm super interested in, but just figured we could acknowledge it anyway. More so as a changing landscape of people that have been, longtime OGs, kind of Hex Maxi type people that are, coming around to this after some time. And hey, I mean, us included. I mean, I think you, in fairness, I think you were a little bit more outspoken about pDAI not being something that would ever come to fruition. I was just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, let's just see where this thing goes. And, kudos to you too. I mean, you're another person who, the more you've seen, came on stream and talked about it as well. So that's one thing I would also caution people who are like, in it from the beginning. Like when you do see people that seem sincerely like, you know what? Yeah, I wasn't looking into it enough back then. I blew it off. And honestly, now that I'm looking, I see what's going on here. Don't hate on those people. I mean, they're coming around to it. And again, this is the big thing. Like everybody wins. Like if this is real and this goes to the level that it could, we all win hard, like way harder than we originally thought,
Yeah. And it is quite possible. This is a good point. Actually, both from Liberty too. It could be because of the lawyers said don't say anything about anything at this point, especially anything new or in the works, or anything like that. So it would be funny if that governance thing sat there until the end of the court case.
It wouldn't be funny to some people.
Well, hey, it is what it is. But I think that's also a possibility that people have to consider. So how big are your balls?
Exactly. What point did you just lead me to there? The balls threw me off.
Sorry.
All this puss DC and balls. Where was I going? Shit. It was one other angle of this vote, or all of this coming together. And we were arguing about this the other day. I personally don't think Richard will ever, even if we get down the line, we're past all this and everything's hunky dory and PulseChain's like, the biggest blockchain in the world. I think that I don't think he'll ever be like, oh yes, I was behind this the entire time and I was behind. No, I just don't think he'll do that. I don't think
I do. Richard likes to pat himself on the back, especially when he's right, especially when he can pull something off. If it's him, if he's the one that's kind of been controlling this, and there is some proof of it pointing in that direction, but he likes to pat himself on the back. He likes to say, I had this idea to bring it from damn near nothing and peg it to $1. That's quite the accomplishment. I don't think he's just going to sit back and not take credit for it if it truly does happen that way.
Okay. I think that he'll look at it as more of like an organic thing that came together. And, he may indirectly brag about it like he has already before, like 4 times through tweeting about it. Like, hey, there's a coin over here that's already done a 5,000x or whatever, that I think he'll do. I just don't think he'll personally talk a lot about it like that.
No.
So
we'll have to see.
Anyway, yeah, we'll see. Remains to be seen. If you guys are enjoying the stream, do us a favor, peg the like button. We appreciate you being here. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's a chance that maybe you are a new viewer because, again, we have new people coming into this ecosystem. We've been getting, our subscriber counts have been blowing up over the last few days. I'm sure it's happening with a lot of PulseChain kind of content creators, channels and stuff like that. So we welcome all of you here. So, Viper, we're going to get into this right now. I want to talk about some of the PRC20s right now because this has been my own little pet project over the last week. Not that I'm the smartest guy with the biggest edge or anything like that, but in crypto, I don't think you have to have some kind of huge edge to do well at this point anymore. But I put this in the chat earlier. I'll do it again. Ewok has it up now. But PulseCoin List, which has always been a really great resource for different PulseChain coin stats, just created this new page with an awesome ERC20 to PRC20 token comparison. Where if you want to kind of scavenge, like now that we're seeing, this pDAI narrative come to light, which could very well mean that a lot of these PRC20 copies do well. Does that mean that they will peg to their ETH copies? I don't know. Does that mean that you need to be looking at, only the ones that maybe have the best community on ETH and buy those? Does it mean you want to look at the ones that have the largest ratio difference currently from ETH? There's a lot of different things that you can look at. I'm obviously not telling you anything about how to invest in them. I have been putting lottery tickets in some of these lately, though, and I've had like P-Link for a while. I had Chainlink's copy on here for a long time, and so many of these have been pumping very hard over the last few days. And if you got caught with your pants down, which I'm sure many did, the biggest one that I bet a lot of you guys probably saw was the copy of Render, which I think is like an AI type token on ETH, which a lot of people are hyped on this bull market. I know Ran Nooner talks about it a lot, but it just did a 54x in a day a few days ago, and quite naturally retraced almost the entire move. And then I bought it then, and now I'm up. So that's kind of nice. But with these, what I have been doing is if you go to the top Ewok, and you don't have to do it this way. Again, this is just how I have been trying to scout for these. But, you already did it there. So you already sorted it, or maybe it was already like that because of the link I sent you, by the percentage differential, being the reddest, highest in red. So that way you know that, yeah, the way it is right now. So you now know these are the ones that are in deepest discount on PulseChain compared to Ethereum. Right beside the differential, you have the ratio. So, for example, these top ones I would not be messing around with at all. There's like no liquidity and stuff, which is, that's the only column kind of out of the picture right now is the whole way to the right. There's a liquidity on PulseChain column. And you will see, there you go, that a lot of these weird ones have like under $1,000 of liquidity. So you don't really want to be messing around with any of that. But if you start to come down slowly here, you will start to see a couple that are legit tokens that are on Ethereum that have you know, a PRC20 copy that's doing pretty well, and you can see what the liquidity is. If you go back for a moment there, just to the percentage differential, and yeah, so these will be the ones that are discounted. You want to hit it one more time. That's the inverse. These will be the ones that are the most discounted on PulseChain. So go down a little bit more, because these are all weird. Like there's that Pendle thing, but it's okay. So like that convex is extremely depressed in price, but there's really hardly any liquidity on PulseChain yet, unless people add it. Pepe, I'm trying to remember if that's a legit PRC20 or if somebody just created a Pepe on PulseChain, but that obviously has plenty of liquidity and hugely discounted. So like, for example, you can see right there with Pepe, maybe actually let's look at right below that Uniswap. This is a better example because we know what Uniswap is. You know, there's nothing. It's definitely a forked copy. So $38,000 of liquidity, and the ratio is 1 to 479. That means the price of just over 3 cents for the Uni token on PulseChain is 480x away from the current Uni price of $15.47. But then you also have to ask yourself, and you can look at like the Uni chart to figure this out, where do you see Uni going this bull cycle? I mean, probably not anywhere parabolic because it sucks. But you know, if it 2x's from here, well, that could give your bag 1,000x if it actually does reach parity. And I'm not saying, you know, I don't know what the probability is that any of these reach parity or anything like that. But you kind of just have to risk what you think is worth it to do that, and realize that some of the value is already gone because a lot of these have moved hard in the last couple of days. But there are many of these that, you know, if you look at what their discount is to their ERC20 copy and then factor in where you think the ERC20 token could go, we talked about the Doge one the other day, which technically isn't a PR. It wasn't an airdrop, but it is Doge on PulseChain. But if you look at some of those and they get even like close to parity at some point or something, I mean, you're looking at 1,000x on some of these tokens. Yeah.
So this Pepe is the real one, and it was an ERC20. So, but you know, I don't know if you remember or not. I think there was a farm at one point with Pepe.
There was. Right at the beginning,
between the two, and there's still $238,000 of liquidity. So that's not too shabby. And it is at a 99% discount. So, you know, that is one that could easily take a little flyer at. Again, not recommending buying any of these. These are completely lottery ticket type things. It, you know, unless you do believe in the whole parity between the two chains, which, you know, I'm not sold on until there's a lot more adoption, and people do come and realize, you know, I think that's a next cycle type thing where people will realize that they have stuff over here, because I still don't think the word is out to everybody about, you know, the world's largest airdrop just never kind of played out. But I think the recent chain of events with pDAI is making some people wake up to it or be aware of it anyway. And I think if that actually does go through and happens, could be interesting. I think that could be a kind of a catalyst to see some of these take off. So, you know, again, a couple bucks that could end up reaching, you know, like you said, some of these to get to parity, you know, your 1,000x's just alone at the price they're at now. But it is a very, very degen type play.
You definitely want to be careful because that one up there, I forget what it's called, something pool. I never, live peer token. I've never heard of that, but like that's one. There's hardly any liquidity. The chart looks weird on ETH. Like you just want to make sure. Like what I would do and what I have been doing is just check into what some of these things are. You know, like I bought Curve DAO or whatever it is because you know I think RH has actually used it, and it's flying today on PulseChain, and it's doing well on ETH as well. Obviously, people have talked about Aave. I don't know how much potential is there in that one, but hey, it's like 200x or something off of where it is on ETH right now. But just kind of look into the ones that you think, like these ones at the very top, I would not mess with at all. These are all pretty weird. But once you get into the ones that are like 500x to parity or less, that is, I think, where the juice is.
But a lot of these ones that you're talking about are part of the whole compound with the voting, the liquid staked ETH. That staked ETH is a token that is part of the, I believe is it part of Compound Finance? It's part of one of them, and that's what they use when you stake and you earn yield. So they're actually
Is it Rocket Pool? Maybe I don't know.
Maybe it's one of them. It's either like Compound or Aave or one of those where you stake your ETH and you get the ST ETH token, and then you can do different things with that. You get that as the reward or something like that can be cashed back in. Anyway, there's several of these. So you got liquid staked Ether, and then you've got the wrap liquid staked Ether. So a lot of these are all kind of tied in together with the different stuff. But again, it's just it's neat to see the difference between the two change and how far they are off of the parity, and it's interesting to look at.
What I would do too is, again, I mean, look at a lot of different things. Don't just look at the difference in the ratio. I would also look at where the charts run up, because if you heard about the render thing the other day and you were just like, oh, I got to get in on this or whatever, and it just did a 50x in a day, go look at the chart, because if you're buying into one gigantic green candle, that usually is not going to go well. And I saw some people on Twitter that bought it at like 20 some cents and stuff like that, and I just grabbed it at 2 cents the other night. This is like days after it did that, so just be careful, because these things have no liquidity or very low and can move extremely quickly. And again, back to a topic we said at the beginning of the show, where you're like blindly DCAing into something for so long and all of a sudden it goes up in crypto. A lot of these, like some people have been doing that with some of these and kind of just left them for dead, and then bam, like out of nowhere they fly, and they still could. I mean, there's a lot of room to run, I think, on some of these. So yeah, be careful. It's just little lottery ticket sizes for me, but I did want to get some exposure to them at the very least. So, he says that ETH is on Lido, actually, the ST.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I knew it was one of those platforms where you obviously stake ETH and or borrow, at least lend it out.
Yeah. So I enjoy those. I've been buying some of them. I do think it's a narrative to watch out for what's going on, but obviously DYOR, and I do think that's a great tool anyway from PulseCoin List. So,
and use extreme caution. Not only do your own research, but you use extreme caution. Just be very, very careful.
Yeah, I'd also take a look at like the token supply difference. Like some of them, the token supply is way more on Pulse than it is on ETH, which could be a red flag. So just look at a few of them, but I've bought like 10 so far, and that's probably all I'm going to stick to right now as far as where I'm at. So, okay, cool. Well, I enjoyed that for sure. Let's just, maybe we wrap up with this and then push one or two of the other things to next week. But it's probably good that we get to this Ethereum upgrade that is coming. That's a big time privacy upgrade actually on ETH. Curiously, this thing announced right on time here for the bull market as Ethereum is starting to creep up. But the update is about EIP 7503, a privacy upgrade with zero knowledge wormholes where you can actually burn ETH in one location, like in one wallet, receive a key, and then mint that ETH at a different address. I know you had a tweet or that you were going to, okay. Oh, it saw me. Okay. That's, I think, the one I had. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know much about it beyond this, but let me ask you what you know. And even more importantly, the angle of it you brought up to me before the show is like, when we do get these kind of things on ETH, they have to come to PulseChain as well.
Yeah. Well, they don't have to, but
not have to.
It is easily way back in the day when PulseChain was being created, there was discussion of forking the Binance chain till there were some major bugs that were discovered. And then, obviously ETH 2.0 came out. They pivoted and said, well, it's going to be better that way when ETH updates happen. Basically change a couple lines of code, and it is easily transferred into an update for PulseChain. So this is huge for privacy. It's almost better than using a mixer, where people can get blacklisted for using a mixer. If this update is implemented, there is no mixer needed. You burn it and again receive a key, and then you mint it at a completely different address. There is no blockchain analysis that will take you to any address. So very good for privacy. Richard's always been a very, very big fan of the privacy side of things. I don't know much about this one. I mean, it's very self-explanatory, I think. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the why it's called wormhole. Maybe it's just that's it disappears from one place and goes to another. I guess that's what a wormhole technically is. But there's a lot of ZK things, the zero knowledge. There's the ZK rollups and ZK snarks and ZK. There's several zero knowledge updates that have been put out over time. But yeah, I thought this was pretty crazy, and very key at this time, especially when we're all talking about privacy and obviously with the tornado ruling, it just helps that it's another tool to use in our toolbox.
Yeah, definitely. And again, one of these things where, Vitalik's been somewhat desperate about where ETH has been here over the last few months, and everybody just, like I said before, victory lapping them and everything. So good to see some kind of an update come out where people are bullish on it. But really what it is they want the price to go up. And now we are seeing that with Ethereum. So that is a good thing as well.
This guy brings up a good point. He says, so in theory, you could, once it does get added to PulseChain, in theory, you could burn all your pulse in small amounts and bring it back as you need, but leave the majority burnt for years, taking it out of circulation, adding a deeper privacy through time, which is an interesting thought too. Now, I don't know if there's a time limit or anything like that. I doubt it, but it would be a matter of now, not only do you have, keys that you have to track on all of those that you have the ability to lose. There's that extra layer of what happens if they do get lost, they're gone forever.
Right.
So
yeah, something to watch out for. But it is interesting, and it will be interesting as we do see these updates with ETH, which ones kind of selectively do make their way to Pulse, because, we knew obviously that any updates that happened pre-fork would be there. But now that we're live and everything, we don't really know what's going to be there. So will be interesting to see indeed. I guess real quick, we could wrap up with this and then call it a day. But yeah, so Gary Gensler, we already knew he was out at the SEC. He is done by January the 20th. I think that will be when he's done, whenever Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States. That's an interesting day, actually. I just realized that day is a Monday. It's MLK Day, and then it's also the College Football National Championship game, I believe.
Oh, yeah?
I think. Yeah, all on that day. So very interesting stuff. Where was I going with this? Oh, so Gensler is gone, and now we have Donald Trump officially announcing that Paul Atkins is going to be named the new SEC commissioner. And I'll be honest here, I'm a little... Oh, okay, here. Did I send you the Trump tweet? I think I did, that we could share. If not, I'll send it again right now.
You didn't?
Okay, let me send it right now. I don't know if I did or not. Actually, excuse me, it wasn't a tweet. It was a truth on Truth Social. So Trump announces Paul Atkins. So maybe we can get a little background on him here. He says, I am delighted to announce the nomination of Paul Atkins to be the next chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Paul is a proven leader for common sense regulations. He believes in the promise of robust, innovative capital markets that are responsive to the needs of investors and that provide capital to make our economy the best in the world. He also recognizes that digital assets and other innovations are crucial to making America greater than ever before. I do think that's interesting that he did include that in his write-up, because he could have just ignored anything about crypto. So that's cool. He goes on to say, Paul is the CEO and founder of Potomac, I don't know, Global Partners, a risk management consultancy, as co-chairman of the Digital Chambers Token Alliance. And since 2017, he has worked on and studied the digital assets industry. So he's been directly involved, which Gensler was in the past as well. We've seen old MIT speeches of him.
Yeah.
He says, a former SEC commissioner from 2002 to 2008. I didn't know that. Paul strongly advocated for transparency and protecting investors. He earned a JD from Vanderbilt University School of Law and his AB from Wofford College, summa cum laude, blah, blah, blah. Congratulations to Paul and his wife, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, there you go. So apparently, and look, I'm not somebody, we've done this before with like legislators and stuff like this. I'm not going to just take the bait on this and be like, hey, everything's going to be good now. This guy's going to be pro crypto. He'll go ahead and get the RH case dismissed. And like, I'm not naive enough to think those kind of things. And hey, Trump himself has been duped by people before. He, extensively with Joe Rogan illustrated how all these people were in his ear recommending all these folks for jobs back in 2016. And maybe it was Trump's own dumb fault. I don't know. But whoever's fault it was, he hired all these people that ended up being shysters, essentially. So I don't think that's what we're going to get here. Obviously, Trump has more experience at this point. So this sounds good. But what do you make of this overall? It certainly looks good.
Well, it looks good. I know nothing about the guy. I don't know anything other than what you just read as far as his background goes. And yeah, I mean, Gensler was at MIT talking about how Ethereum wasn't a security, and then look at the flip flop that he did, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the bad thing is politicians can be bought, and depends on who is whispering in their ear, kind of thing, to see which way they lean. Hopefully you're right that Trump has gained some knowledge and some, knowing how to feel people out, knowing how to kind of get people that aren't going to turn their back on what they claimed that they were going to do and then turn around and do something completely different. So yeah, I don't know anything about this, but it sounds promising. It's going to be a let's wait and see. And that's all we can really do. I don't know if you saw the what was his name, Tom Emmert. I sent you the speech that he gave, kind of ushering Gary out the door, and he seemed very promising on this guy. So there's a positive. Somebody that we know has been in our corner, at least,
right?
Fighting for some transparency anyway. Speaking highly of him, so that is good to hear, and hope he does a good job. I mean, I hope they get rid of a lot of these cases that are just nonsensical and a waste of taxpayer dollars, and go after the people that are hurting people. I don't know if you saw Mishensky took a plea deal today, up to 30 years, which I guarantee he doesn't get anything close to that. But that's the maximum sentence for him. And, I hope a lot of these people that have hurt people financially, I hope they start going after them instead of the ones that are only trying to make things better. So,
yeah, Mashinsky, definitely a legitimate scammer, and it's usually guys like him that are calling out Richard Hart for being a scammer, because they actually in turn are scamming. So it will be interesting. I mean, all we really want from the SEC is just leave us alone. Just leave Britney alone. Just leave the industry alone. I think that's, Trump obviously is saying a lot of pro crypto things. He highlights this guy's pro crypto stances and experience in crypto and stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily mean a lot to me, but as long as he is just more so hands off and not interested in, I think one thing Tom Emmer said in that was the whole, I'm paraphrasing, but just, authority by force or whatever, or basically the whole thing they do where they throw a bunch of shit at the wall, sees what sticks, and just sues everybody, doesn't work. So I think Emmer is definitely right about that. And either way, if you'd have told us 6 months ago that this is where we're at with this corrupt government agency, we would be very happy about it. Gensler is gone, and we got a Trump appointed guy in there now. So it's good. I don't think anything, and Nuclear Herbs has even said this, I don't think anything is going to change with the Richard Hart case or anything like that. Who knows? I mean, maybe we do get those attorneys, and this is just totally me talking out of my ass, but maybe the SEC attorneys do put up even less of a fight than they already are because the writing's kind of on the wall. Right. And hopefully we just get a favorable judgment from Judge Carroll here, soon. It's already been about 5 weeks almost. So, I don't know if you have any.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if we get any kind of judgment until, I think it would be wise to wait until the new leadership takes over. That's the last thing you want to do, is start a case, have people that are reporting to certain people halfway through get thrown out or not thrown out, but they have to change who they're reporting to. And I just think it makes sense to wait until that happens for either decision, whether it be now, unless it gets thrown out, unless she decides that there is no jurisdiction and doesn't want to continue it, that could be done at any time. Right. But if not, I think there will be a decision to at least wait until the new folks come in before anything kind of continues.
Yeah. Yep, I think that is likely what she will do. So either way, good news all around on the SEC front. And that is definitely good. Sorry, my monitor is frozen right now, and I can't get over. There we go. Over to StreamYard. Thank you, Johnny. Regulation by enforcement. So I think that's going to wrap us up for tonight. This is a phenomenal show. Again, I mean, things are turning up roses everywhere. We got a lot of bullish things going on. Friday the 6th, obviously, a big day for the ecosystem. We'll see where this vote goes and see how quickly that executive vote goes on after that. But a lot of things to be really bullish about, even whether the pDAI thing was going on or not. It basically turns an ecosystem that we were all, pretty wildly bullish on into being like otherworldly, blindsidingly bullish on. So, that's really the difference that we're looking at here, I think. Any final thoughts from you, Ewok?
Well, yeah, there was one thing. We had a viewer ask us a quick question in Twitter this morning about the hex rate APR, and mentioned something that it wasn't anywhere close to 30% or whatever. I think on the website it was quoted at 38%. You actually have to be an average length, average size staker to get those kind of returns. If you only stake for a month or two, I think your return rate is going to be like 7 to 9%. That's what it had been in the past. And then obviously the longer that you stake, the more the percentage goes up. Also, the period throughout the time as you're staking, your APR goes up too, because every day it incrementally you get more hex per T-share as time goes on. That number just slowly goes up and goes up and goes up very slowly. So your actual APR goes up at the same time. So most people don't understand. They think they're going to stake for 30 days and make 40% returns. And that's not the case. Most of those short stakers are only, again, I think it's anywhere between 6 and 10%. So I'm not quoting it wrong. I think it's closer to 7 or 8, but I just wanted to kind of address that. You have to stake at least the average stake length, which is, I believe, over 7 years now, and be an average size staker as well with your T-shares in order to come close to that 35 to 38% ish. So just wanted to address that before we ended the show, because I told him we would talk about it. So
sweet. All right. Well, appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys in the chat. Another great show. We got Fast Abdul checking in right there at the end. Johnny Chaos, some heavy hitters coming in right at the end as we're getting out of here. But Yellowtail, DJ Moonboy, of course, Hex Girl, Viper Styles, DeFi Gardner was in here tonight. You and I have had words before, but hey, we were all in agreement tonight, so that was fun. Hash, Joffis, I see you on Twitter every now and then. Charles Stone, Philly, I didn't catch you there, man. Welcome in. Yeah, a lot of you guys tonight. So we really appreciate you guys. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a lot of things to feel very bullish about. So we'll catch you here next week for Crypto Ewok. This has been Broke Boy Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto. We'll see you guys.
See ya.